Good evening, everybody. The October 25th Hibbing Public Utilities Commission meeting is called to order. All commissioners are present with the exception of Commissioner Garrity and Commissioner Andrea. Do we have any adds or deletes?
No, Chair.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 3, approval of the minutes of the September 27th, 2022 commission meeting.
So moved.
And I'll support that. We have a motion by Commissioner Bayless, support by Chairman Hart to approve the minutes for the September 27th meeting. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Item 4, citizens forum. I haven't been presented with anything. We'll move on to item number 5, the consent agenda. Item 5A, approve invoices greater than $10,000 and approve the bills and ACH transfers dated September 24th to October 21st. Item 5B, approve the payroll paid and overtime report for the October 6th and October 20th, 2022 pay dates. Item 5C, approve Omen Pump not to exceed $50,000 for boiler 4, ESP swap out and crane mobilization. Item 5D, ratify purchase order 220-89212 for the purchase of 60 reverse osmosis membranes in the amount of $30,000 from H2O Innovations as critical spare backups for the plant boiler water system. Item 5E, authorize letter of intent for water system improvements with Mr. Barrett Zemer, the Executive Director of the Range Regional Airport. Item 5F, approve Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, pre-application and application in the amount of $300,000 for Stunts Drive and Hematite Street reconstruction. Item 5G, approve community-wide distribution of the Hibbing Renewable Energy Center Centennial event on Thursday, November 10th. What will be the wish of the commission?
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
We have a motion to approve the consent agenda by Commissioner Bayless, support by Commissioner Babich. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Item 6, financials and risk management. Item 6A, third quarter 2022 financials from Baker Tilly. Mr. Peterson?
Thank you very much, Chair Hart. Members of the public, we are joined over the telephone with Ms. Bethany Ryers from Baker Tilly, who was involved with the oversight of the first draft of financials for Q3. This would take full reconciliation of all the cash through public utilities through the end of last month. And as we are updating our chart of accounts, it is a work in progress we are working through, and I'll turn it over to Bethany Ryers to provide any updates that she wishes. Bethany, it's all you.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Luke. And thank you all for allowing me to present this to you today, and especially allowing me to do it in a bit more of a unique manner than usual. So first, I want to kind of go through draft financial through September. As Luke mentioned, cash has been reconciled through September. So cash is king, that should be good. You will notice that the cash line item on the balance sheet is negative in both July and September. And this is because on your bank statement, a few accounts roll into the bank statement account. So when you add up all the accounts, it is most definitely a very positive number. So if you look at the cash line item and then the restricted assets line item, you get well over that negative amount. And I think in September, it's closer to 1.2 million in total. So we haven't done any reconciliation of the amounts that need to be included in the restricted asset accounts, but in total, cash is good. Also, as Luke mentioned, we're in the process of going through the journal entries to correct some of the balances. So the remaining journal entries that we need to make include a lot of the same entries that were made in the prior quarter when I presented to you, and that includes correctly allocating the gas invoices between the power plant and the gas utility, correctly classifying the Minnesota Power invoices to reflect the correct grossing up the revenue and expense that's shown on the invoice, and of course, recording wood inventory to an expense account. In addition, as we continue to learn more about the utilities, as we start delving into more and more accounts, we find more items to correct. So this quarter, we're also going to look at providing a standard monthly entry for your depreciation expense, so we can have that pretty close to where it should be near year end. We also believe some items may have been expensed that relate to capital items, which will help your expenses. You'll notice some of them got a little high in July and August, and we think that's the result of items that should have been capitalized that were likely expensed. So we're going to go into that in a little bit more detail and capitalize some of those items. We're also going to take a look at some of the few other allocation accounts to see if there's other corrections that should be made, or to kind of get a better understanding of how those accounts have been done in the past, and either reverse what has been done at the first 3 months of the year, or figure out what we need to do going forward. So I guess the lesson in all that is, while we do have some additional entries, most of those will likely be moving expenses between utility funds, adding some additional expenses for that expensing the wood inventory and depreciation expense, and then potentially reversing out some of those larger expenses to capitalize them. Overall, I do just want to say, cash is king, and those balances should be good to go. Just remember to look at those in total. I know it's a bit nerve-wracking when you see that negative balance, but in total, you have a good balance of positive cash. Before I go on I kind of want to give you an update on the FERC chart of accounts and a few other items. So before I go on, is there any questions related to the draft financial statements or anything that I mentioned so far?
If I could, Chair, I don't see any questions.
No. Okay.
Excellent. That's what I like. But of course, if you do have any questions or want some additional detail, just let me know. Mm-hmm. I can always shoot, if it's not something I know offhand, I can always do a little bit of research and shoot an email out to you all with the additional details. So related to the FERC chart of accounts, or the new account structure that we're working on, which will incorporate the FERC chart of accounts, we are continuing to work through the new account structure. I think we have a very good base. We are building that new account structure to contain a department code that would specify the specific utility or a general account if it pertains to all of the utilities. Each account in that structure will contain a specific FERC or NARUC account. As Russ went through in the working session, that is very important for consistency, to ensure that you are recording things in a way that will assist in your rate making process, to ensure that you're collecting rates equitably in a true cost of service function. So the key that we're moving towards is to provide simplicity. There will most definitely be less accounts than you do have now, and to ensure consistency, to ensure that all the accounts, the expenses, are recorded in the correct accounts consistently going forward, to hopefully, so you can have those department by department or utility by utility balance sheet, and to assist with your rate structure and cost of service going forward. This is, of course, a starting point. As we go through it in detail, we'll likely want to break out the capital items in a bit more detail to assist with your cost of service. But we'll have a very good starting point, and we have talked to the software consultants related to implementation. With the new accounts, when the new accounts are included, we will provide a mapping of the old accounts to the new accounts, and it will go into Civic as if the new accounts were always in place. So you'll still have that history. It won't interfere with the year-end process audit adjustments, anything like that. So you should be good once it is implemented and in the system. And talking to Mike at Civic, he doesn't think there will be a problem with testing it and making sure that it is live as of January 1st. In addition, as a close, I know it's the end of October and it's the season to start looking at your next year's audit, which is kind of sad. Where does the year go? So as a close, I know your auditors are probably starting that planning process. And I just wanted to make sure that you knew that we are available to chat with the auditors and assist in any reconciliations, work paper preparations that they think is necessary. So does anybody have any additional questions? I do appreciate your time today.
The commissioners are nodding their head no, and I just wanted to mention that, we have reached out to Jeff and Bonnie, and we will start planning for the audit this year. I'm expecting a much smoother audit process, so we can start, getting kind of Jeff and Bonnie kind of prepped for the next chart of accounts and kind of going forward with utility cost of service and all the types of rate making that we need to do in the future for the stability of the utility. That's coming together. And I just wanted to thank Bethany and Russ and the team from Baker and Tilly from providing that clarity. And a lot of the uncertainties and the challenges of the current account structure, even as we look at finalizing the last quarter of financial results, it is nice to know where all these amounts will be going in the future. And so having that new milepost of how our utility is accounted for, philosophically speaking, with the intention of providing very transparent rate-making processes and efficiencies to our customers and operation staff and employees is very important. So this is the DNA that we need to build the business of the future for Hibbing Public Utilities. So with that in mind, thank you, Bethany.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. With that, we'll move on to item 6B, the Chart of Accounts memo. Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Chair Hart. This memo goes into just a little bit more detail of some of the proposed changes to the chart of account structure, as Bethany mentioned in her presentation. The idea is simplicity. I've shared electronically with Commissioners Hart and Garrity this afternoon that final kind of tick and tie of where the current accounts go to the new accounts, and I'm happy to share that with any other commissioners if they're interested. But as Bethany said, we're eliminating about 75% of the accounts that we have in our current system that are not used. So we're expecting this will result in improved processing time and efficiencies all around, and make our month-end reporting more timely. I know this, what is the cost of steam and allocation and all that stuff has been always a political football for the Public Utilities Commission. And I wanted to just before we start getting into the discussion of allocation methodologies, I just wanted to lay out the principle that there is a very standard industry way of dealing with this stuff. So we're not going to be inventing things or shooting from the hip, as it were. We're going to follow very sound principles that are going to be based on the true cost of service. And all that we can glean from right now is it's customary for the power plant and the whole apparatus to be housed within the utility bucket, and then anything that is uniquely steam for the steam customers is charged out, and then a reasonable and very vetted process is used for allocating shared expenses between the electric generation and the power. And because the business model for Hibbing Public Utilities has changed quite a bit over the last 3 years, where now we do have an operating utility that is interfacing with MISO on a regular basis with I have high efficient and best in class maintained turbines, which Omen Pump will talk to us about in a little bit. It's quite a different business model, and I think it'll be very easy to find, I believe, a rational approach that will kind of cut some of the BS of political football that went over on the past practices of this utility. So that's my summary of that.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. With that, we will move on to item 6C, the power plant update and review and approve scope additions within budget. Mr. Peterson?
Thank you very much, Chair Hart. Commissioners, if you recall from the October 11th working session, I presented a report that we had just received from Jim Omen and Orbital, which is where we had sent our turbine rotor. That's the inside the turbine, if you can imagine at home, folks. The turbine is basically nothing but a big fan blade that's about 12 feet long and has, 12 individual fans on it? Something like that. So it looks pretty cool when you see it in the air, but it's a really expensive piece of equipment that makes our electricity when steam runs through it. And that rotor was taken out of the plant. I believe 2 of you commissioners were there to see it that day. We sent it down to St. Louis with the help of Jim Omen and his team to get inspected, and part of that found some deficiencies in the turbine rotor itself, which is what we'd expect. This is normal for this. And the updated change order that you have in front of you is kind of, as we get through the inspection, what are we finding in this turbine and the whole apparatus and support structure. So with that in mind, I mean, we overall, within budget, we're right where we are, where we want to understand what we need to do to make this turbine run another 5 years, and just very pleased with what we found. So I don't know, Jim or Bill, if you guys wouldn't mind just coming up and just telling us what you think, both of you maybe. Tag team effort here. The commissioners might be nice.
My name is Bill Poulter, and I was a 43-year employee with Minnesota Power. And over that period of time, I was a caretaker of the turbine generator fleet, in which case I've gone through about 75 of these overhauls. And your overhaul, there's the primary reason to do an overhaul on a periodic basis, it's 5 to 10 years, depending on the owner, is to make sure that you have safe and reliable generation for the period of time between when you inspected it and when you have your next inspection. That's the primary reasons. The secondary reason is it's something that's pretty well demanded by your insurance company, Factory Mutual. And they want to see it inspected so that you do not have a claim on the equipment.
Yeah, so we're working through, we sent the rotor down there, just seeing the first couple stages after the Curtis were damaged. So we knew they were going to have to be replaced anyway, so it made more sense to send it right down there and where they remove the buckets and where they manufacture them, where they reinstall them, remachine them, and then rebalance. So that's the steps we took with the rotor, and that's all on track right now. We're working on the balancing scheduling right now just to do our high-speed balances before they send it back. So that's the biggest item you see on there is the rotor repairs that were just due from running for as long as it ran in between major cycles since last time it was overhauled.
So I think we heard Mr. Poulter say 5 to 10 years, is the maintenance cycle depending on what goes in. Last time this was done was at least 2005, so we're well beyond that. And with that, some idle time too, which hasn't been good for our turbine rotor in various parts, especially those first couple discs that you saw. So, we are kind of where we want to be, but I guess the goal is to get this puppy back in service as soon as we can, and that's where the scheduling is kind of some give and take as we try to find available high-speed balance. But if you think of it this way, how fast does this rotor turn inside the turbine?
3,600 RPMs.
Yeah, so 3,600 revolutions per minute is the speed at which this fan is spinning inside the turbine, and it needs to be balanced at that level, and you can't just balance that at that speed anywhere in the country. And so they're trying to slide us into a slot in Texas, and Jim said he's got all these connections he can get us in.
Yeah, we're working with a few different people, but yeah, and it wasn't just the 2 rows they replaced. There was a little bit of erosion on rows past that. So we had them go back, and all we do is we go on the trailing edge of the buckets where they're the thinnest. And if there's any kind of imperfection there, we'll just take them back a little bit. So when they go in there, they take a little bit back. They might take a 1/16 of an inch off the trailing edge of the buckets, down a few rows and in some bad spots. So that's where you start to take a little bit more material off, and it's hard for them to judge exactly when You have to get this thing really close and you're that far off the center line when it's spinning that fast. So it's always been beneficial to have a high-speed balance.
All right, thank you, gentlemen, appreciate you showing up.
Yep. Oh, thank you.
You have anything else to add regarding that?
No, other than that, we are more or less on schedule and within our budget for the power plant. We resumed wood operations yesterday evening, and things are looking good.
Okay. With that being said, I'll make a motion to approve the change order for Omen Pump, the change order for Radatich, and the change order for Hekimovich. Is there support?
Support? Well, give it to Jess.
We have a motion by Chair Hart, support by Commissioner Bayless to approve the change orders as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next will be item number 7, policy and governance. Item 7A, approve job description and advertising for plant maintenance coordinator. Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Chair Hart. It's no mistake that this comes right after we approve a $1 million bill for repairing our turbine. Preventative maintenance is money well spent, and we've learned a lot from this turbine overhaul. We will have a report that's, hundreds and hundreds of pages long from the various folks that have looked at parts of our operations, and the thing is, we're gonna have to do something about it. And not just let those reports sit and collect dust on the shelves, but actually implement a very methodical and planned preventative maintenance system. And this ties in directly to the reliability of Hibbing's assets as it relates and represents its ability to generate power for not just our own load, but the MISO market in general. So preventative maintenance and needing to be more methodical and planning on this is no surprise that this is the era that we're entering. It will demand a higher level of accountability, both for Hibbing Public Utilities, all aspects of its operations, to make sure that we're maintaining our equipment best in class. And if we're not, we're going to be penalized by MISO. So we are in the place of needing to be able to maintain our equipment well, so that it can provide the value that its ratepayers intend from having operating assets. And there's no guarantee. The only guarantee is hard work. And so with all this, the plant maintenance coordinator will be the one who will be primarily charged to that. The plant maintenance coordinator, as proposed, would report into the energy pricing and planning manager, which is currently, and he's doing a very good job, Paul Plumbon. And within all that, the reporting of our outages, as well as making sure our generation functions when and how we need it, is so critical into having the day-to-day cost savings that this operation is getting us. So this position would have a lot of responsibility and a lot of impact in the day-to-day implementation of preventative and planning maintenance, and working with our existing crews in the power plant well. So with that in mind, I'd be of any questions you guys have about this role or its scope.
I don't have anything. Do we have, what will be the wish of the commission?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I'd support it to approve the job description
Okay,
and advertise.
all right. We have a motion by Commissioner Babich, support by Commissioner Bayless, to approve the job description and advertising for plant maintenance coordinator. Any further discussion?
Just had one question.
Yep.
Where is this gonna fit, Luke? We have our,
Yes, the org chart, so right here, you see energy pricing and programs manager.
that's
It would go
right under,
right under there, yes.
Okay.
And as we start planning at the end of this year in November, and we'll talk about the November work session, I think we would have a lot more discussion around the future of the HREC and kind of that whole structure over it. But this position reports directly into the energy pricing and programs manager for planning.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item 7B, approve hiring of the head cashier and front office manager position. Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Chair Hart. We have an internal posting in front of us for the head cashier, who I posted internally when we posted this, that it's ironic that we have a job titled cashier, and then in the future, we very likely will not be taking cash. No urgent decisions to do that, but the idea is that this role would be one of change and transition and be more in charge of basically running the front office. This role was vacated by Paul Plumbon. It's currently being served by Luke Odegaard, who moved up from cashier, and then the job duties are all being split. And if you recall, this area of the utility hasn't had the job descriptions updated since, well, gosh, I think it was 2005, very old. So, there were a lot of things contemplated. But either way, we had 3 applicants for the position, and I'm going to recommend that the commission give it to the most senior qualified position, which is George Pagachnik, here present. So.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Peterson. And the name was?
George Pagachnik.
Okay. Okay, what will be the wish of the commission?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Bayless, support by Commissioner Babbage to hire George, what's his?
Pagachnik.
Yes. For the position of head cashier. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Thank you. We'll move on to item 7C, approve hiring of Jonathan Lee for plant mechanic. Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Chair Hart. We have posted internally for plant mechanic a while ago, and we've had outside advertising for this position. And we had a number of candidates, and I recommend Jonathan Lee for the position of plant mechanic.
Thank you, Mr.
Apprentice.
Peterson. I'll make a motion to approve the hiring of Mr. Lee for plant mechanic. Is there support? Support. We have a motion by Chair Hart, support by Commissioner Babbage to approve the hiring of Jonathan Lee for plant mechanic. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Next item will be item 7D, approve hiring of Stephanie Dickinson for utility operations manager. Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Chair Hart. Ahead of you, Commissioners, is the role of utility operations manager. If you recall, we approved this in August as to go out to advertise this position, and this will be a key strategic management position overseeing all of the field operations of Hibbing Public Utilities. So the electric utility, the water crew, and the heat crew would all report into the utility operations manager. I am recommending the commission hire Stephanie Dickinson for the choice of utility operations manager. Stephanie rose above the crowd, and there was a very good crowd of candidates that we looked at for this position, but her 17 years of experience in municipal governments, constructions, and utilities has served her well to take on this leadership role. Ms. Dickinson holds a bachelor's degree in energy management from Bismarck State College, has worked at Minnesota Power, the City of Aurora, and Lakehead Constructors over her career. I have some experience working with her, and I report her to be an employee and a coworker of high integrity that is very effective in getting the job done and also helping move the utilities forward. Stephanie is also a native of Hibbing, which will not harm her in her effectiveness in this role. I think it would help, and she is a very stellar candidate. So with that, Commission Chair Hart, I would recommend the commission approve Ms. Dickinson for the utility officer, operations manager position.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. As you know, Mr. Peterson and I interviewed Stephanie and another person this week, and they're both very good quality candidates, and Stephanie did stand out with more experience, which would be very helpful in this role. So I believe she's the right candidate also. So I'd make a motion to hire Stephanie for operations manager.
Support.
We have a motion by Chair Hart, support by Commissioner Bayless to hire Stephanie Dickinson for utility operations manager. Any further discussion?
I just,
Yeah, Mr. Bevich.
even with this hire then, does that take some of the, because ever since I started the commission, it was about how, the crew leads were kind of taking on extra.
Yeah.
Will this take away from some of that, so they're not, what do I want to say? I want to say overworked, but
Right.
of that nature.
Yes, it will. I mean, what I think it'll allow the crew leads to do is focus more on productivity out in the field. And a lot of the administrative planning, progress, integrated, there's things that we're not doing and things we're leaving on the table just because we're trying to do the administrative work of managing those crews and also the operational excellence of being out in the field. And this position will certainly help us be more productive overall. It's, I think, long overdue to have a manager in this role that will do a lot with scheduling and planning out future work. It'll allow the whole team to be more effective together. But as we kind of grow, we want to grow the right people at the right time, and now is the right time.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Next item will be item 7E, approve hiring of Paige Lee for cashier. Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Chair Hart. Commissioners, in August, we approved the cashier position for going out for advertising and posting internally. It was posted internally, no one applied. Ms. Lee comes from the outside, and we've interviewed her, and a team of internal folks all unanimously agreed that Paige Lee is the recommendation for filling the cashier position.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. What will be the wish of the commission?
Motion to approve the hire of Paige Lee.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion by Commissioner Bayless, support by Commissioner Babich to approve hiring Paige Lee for cashier. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Item 7F, set the date for the November working session.
Thank you, Chair Hart. Commissioners, if you recall, our working session is scheduled for November 9th at 5 p.m., which is Wednesday, the first week in November, or the second week in November, following what would have been our normal Tuesday day, but because of the election day, on Tuesday, we had moved it to Wednesday. Well, Wednesday is also the city council meeting, so I think we should probably move, it's not, okay.
It shouldn't be. It should be
The council
Okay.
should be on the second.
Okay.
Second and 16th with the
Okay.
council.
So do we need to move the working session if it's on the 9th? Because I was going to recommend we move it to the 21st of November, which would be right before our regular commission meeting, the day before, and that would allow it to be a more kind of focused capital budgeting session. So, I mean, it's just the will of the commission. I mean, would you mind waiting until November 21st?
Sure, if I could. So, Chair, members of the commission, the HEDA meetings aren't until the third Wednesday of the month, right? And on the Monday before that. So I'm not aware of a conflict. The concern I had when I communicated with you, Luke, is on the bottom of your packet, it says Tuesday, November 9th. And I'm like, okay, I know we need to stay with Tuesday because of the election. But as far as I know, there's not a conflict. I didn't check with City Hall, but
All right.
I don't know there should be an issue with November 9th unless you'd prefer just to move it back further in the month.
You know, I might, just that would give us more time to get the chart of accounts a little straightened out and prep the budget that we could review and approve on the 21st and 22nd. If that works for you guys, it's that Monday before, the parade, I think, is Monday night.
Parade is on one of those
yeah.
days.
That's right. I think it's the parade's on the 21st,
Okay.
so. Could we, should we move it leave it at November 9th for right now? And then come back, or move it to the 16th? Do any of you have commission preferences? I would like to move it back just a little bit to the, if we could do it either before the 22nd, which is going to be way too long, or November 15th. Yep. Okay. Okay, all right, that's. Okay. So what about Tuesday, the 15th of November? Does that work?
That's fine.
Okay, all right. That works for everybody. That will be the day of our working session, to avoid Monday, the 21st, is the parade.
The 15th, you said?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, I think we might need a motion.
I'll make a motion that we move our working session to November 15th, 2022. Is there support?
I'll support.
A motion by Chair Hart, support by Commissioner Babich. The working session will be November 15th, 2022. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Is there any old or new business anybody would like to bring up? If not, we're going to move to adjournment.
So moved.
Okay, I'll support that. We have a motion by Commissioner Bayless, support by Chairman Hart to adjourn the meeting. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, everybody.